not gonna lie, y'all, I almost did not want to post a video tonight because I'm too tired and I don't feel like it. And it was a long weekend. Today is Sunday night. Today's day 2 of my YouTube 30-day challenge. So what this video is going to be about is how I maintain productivity after working a long day. This is something that a lot of people struggle with. And just to give you context, I work full-time and I have kids. So I'm lucky to have the same schedule that my kids have, so it makes it a lot easier to work full-time. So what I do, I have a couple of different household things that I do to make it a lot easier. So I have a whiteboard that I keep in my room that has a weekly schedule of what I need to do after work, what the kids are having for lunch. I have, and if there's any appointments, what's happening on the weekend, things like that. Then in my kids' room, they have their own whiteboard too. And on that whiteboard, it has what their specials are going to be, what the weather's going to be like, their breakfast, lunch, dinner, what they need to expect for the whole entire week. And I do this every weekend. So every weekend I erase the board and I do it completely over. And also I have any events that are happening after school. If there's any social things that are happening, if they're going to a friend's house, if they have to do an after school activity, if there's an appointment, if they're doing whatever, so on and so forth, right? So that's the basic thing. That's like my whiteboard, their whiteboard. We each have it in our rooms. And in the morning, we check our whiteboards. It helps us to stay organized so we know what to expect for that day, for the next day. If I need to put in any requests for times off from work for an appointment, if I have to leave early and stuff like that. So that's just the basics of something that I do. Another thing that I do is meal plan every single weekend. So on the weekends, I like to do pickup orders because it's so much easier with kids. So much easier even if you don't have kids. You could do pickup orders for your groceries so you're not walking around wasting time in the store and you know exactly how much it's going to cost before you check out, which is really nice for budgeting. So that's another thing I do is budgeting on the weekends for the week coming up. So I know what expenses are coming out, what I need to spend money on that's a household item, any other things that are coming up that might, like taxes and stuff like that, things I need to know for like the car and stuff like that. So that's another part of what I do. The third thing that I do is I have sinking funds for everything in my paycheck. So once I get my paycheck, I subtract the expenses that I'm going to be spending until the next paycheck. And then whatever's left over goes towards sinking funds. Sinking funds is a new terminology that I didn't really know about when it took me probably a year ago. I figured out what sinking funds were. It's all the other things that you spend money on that you don't realize that you're going to spend money on in that moment, but they do come up at some point. For example, getting new tires for your car, an oil change, car taxes come up twice a year in my state. So that's something that I have to set aside money for slowly. Christmas, Halloween, going on vacation, other things, educational expenses, things for back to school things, summer vacation, whatever you need to spend money on that's going to come up at some point. Whatever's left in your check, you put that sort of emergency fund for savings, and then you have other things that you trickle down and you spend all. That's like budgeting to zero basically. So that's something that I do. And so some of you may be wondering, how do I maintain a personal life amongst all this scheduling? You're talking about budgeting, Cynthia. You're talking about taking care of your kids, their specials, their after school programs, appointments, bills, stuff like that. Well, it's part of just being an adult and getting your schedule together. Like it's really difficult at first, but then you get used to the swing of things and you figure out what works for you, what's not working for you. Using a paper planner worked for me for a little bit, but then I utilize this whiteboard a lot more and it's perfect. And then I have 2 whiteboards in my room actually. One is for my weekly calendar and the other one is my monthly goals that I want to work on for that month based on different categories in my life and different projects that I'm working on. And that's what those goals are. And I also sometimes write weekly tasks. So, another thing I do that's really helpful is using Google Tasks. So in Google Task and in Google Calendar. In Google Task, I have all the different life categories that I'm working on for that quarter, for the 12 weeks, for just one quarter at a time. And then in those categories, I write down different tasks that I want to do under those categories. And then as the month goes by, I say, okay, so December, we're in December. So if December comes, you check off that you did something for one of your businesses that you're working on, or that you are working on another project and you did that one tiny thing for that project, or you ended up putting money aside and towards a total amount for your sinking funds for one envelope that you've been working on for a while, or you built your emergency fund to 6 months of income, or whatever it might be. So you can make those goals for yourself and then you can put them into your calendar. and your Google Task as well. So Google Calendar is really helpful, and I use Cozy, which is another family planning app. So me and my significant other, we use an app called Cozy, and in that app we can share our calendars for when appointments, when we're meal planning, when we have to-do lists, when we have household things around the house that we need to do, when there's something for the kids that are coming up that we have to do. Whatever's coming up, this is our way of organizing more passively instead of making it more of a formal meeting. Like it's not like a staff meeting or anything crazy where we have to sit down and be like, okay, we're going to have a meeting about this. No, it's not like that. So it's more laid back, and it's really nice because then I could just check. I get notifications for it, and I'm like, oh, I see that he has an appointment coming up for this, or that I have to remind him to get this from the store, and that I'm going to be going to an appointment for that, or I have a meeting after school for this, or whatever's happening in our lives is coordinated through the app. So whenever you're having a busy lifestyle, you still know what your other person is doing. You know what the kids are doing. Everyone knows where everyone is. Everyone's accounted for. It gives you less anxiety. It's really nice. It's really nice. I highly recommend it. It's Cozi. That's the name of the app, Cozy. It's a great app. So if you have significant other, if you have a spouse, whatever you consider your other person, if you have them and your kids, if your kids are old enough and they have phones, you guys can all be on the Cozy app together, and everyone can see the schedule of what's happening, what's for dinner, what's for breakfast, what's for lunch, when the appointments are. They can see what's coming up for other people. It's great. It's really nice. So that's one thing that I highly recommend you do. So something that works really well for me. Now, I know I just said that paper planners didn't work entirely well. That's because by themselves, they weren't doing what I needed. So I have a hybrid of, I guess the whiteboard is my planner. So the whiteboard is kind of like a paper planner in addition to my digital planner for Cozy. So I use both for different things. So my weekly planner, my whiteboard, is more of a day-to-day detailed of what's happening. And my Cozy is more of like, appointments that are happening, meetings that are happening, different events that are happening, if we're invited to something, different things that are just coming up in the future. And then it also helps me meal plan and write mutual to-do lists that both me and my spouse can look at. Another thing that keeps me held accountable without having all these things is just the mental state of the way I think. So just having that mentality to know that you're holding yourself accountable for something, that people are relying on you, that you're relying on yourself, that you're holding yourself accountable for your task, and just taking responsibility for your actions really helps me come a long way with all of that. So I learned that there's no one else to blame if something goes wrong in my life except for myself, unless someone else calls something directly happening to me, right? So I have to take responsibility for my own actions. So I'm not going to sit there and blame someone else because I didn't save up what I wanted to save up because they invited me to a concert that I wanted to go to. That's no one else's fault. That's my own fault. If I needed to have self-control, that's just an example of having self-control for your own actions so you can create the goals that you want. Right? Something that everyone should keep in mind. So when you're in your life and things are not going the way you want them to, you need to make a firm decision of what you're going to do, what you're not going to do anymore, and what your plan is going forward so that you can change the things that you've done in the past so you don't have that same repeat cycle over and over in the future. So sometimes we have to make ourselves feel uncomfortable in a situation so that we can get the most out of our situation and try to change the way we think about it so it doesn't feel so horrible, so uncomfortable. For example, I wake up at now like 5 in the morning just automatically. I don't even have to set an alarm. I just wake up at 5 a.m. And I go to bed a little bit later. So I try to squeeze in as much productivity as possible with not just planning and organizing, but planning things for my kids' lives, planning things for my pets. I have a ball python and a bearded dragon I have to take care of. I'm a social worker as well, so that I have a caseload of kids that I have to think about and consider when I'm doing things. I have so many things to think about and plan in my life that maximizing my time to the best of my ability is going to be key in me getting things done. And also, I don't like to give myself a pass unless I'm physically sick and I can't do something for that purpose. So with that being said, I encourage you all to do your best to plan your next 12 weeks, the first quarter of 2025. Figure out what works for you, what's going to be happening in your life categories, what are your tasks, what are your goals, what are some things that you want to change to significantly make your life better than it was in 2024. And yes, you have the power to change that with your mind. Maybe some of you need to start with your mind first. I had to start with my mind first, and there's nothing wrong with that. We all got to start somewhere. Meet yourself where you're at. Don't be too hard on yourself, but hold yourself accountable. Peace out, guys.